I feel like my spouse has secrets. What now?
What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast. I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler. We're brothers.
We're therapists,
We're not afraid of your questions.
so bring it. All right, Tyler, before we answer that question, let's do a quick review. So the review says, and this is from Stephanie, it says, real, honest, and kind. No spouse bashing, no shaming, and refreshingly optimistic. I love the attitude of tackling the hard stuff to not only save a marriage, but thrive within the relationship. So
Thank you, Stephanie.
I think both you and I, Tyler, we've been I've been accused of being a man hater, and I've also been accused of siding too much with the men. And so I take that as a compliment. I'm not on the team, betrayer or team betrayed. I'm not on team addict or team partner. Neither. You know what I'm on team? I'm on team get happy and healthy and peace and recovery and I'm willing to say the hard stuff. And sometimes people don't like that. But my intention is purely just to help them heal. And
it's really about,
I know you're the same, Tyler.
Yeah, it's really about wholehearted living, but it's hard when you're doing the job that we have to do. Sometimes, I tell my clients this all the time. I say, there will come a time when one or both of you are going to want to either hate me or you're going to slam the door on the way out.
Yeah.
And I say, all I ask is that you give it a week to really think about if it was personal or if it was really designed for your own good. And most of the time people come back, and sometimes they don't. And I've even had people who don't come back, but years or months down the road, they send their friend to me.
Right.
So,
Well, would you rather have a therapist who placates you, and tries to get you to like them because they need you to like them? Or would you rather have a therapist who pushes you and challenges you and is honest with you, even if it's hard, even if that reality, that truth is difficult? When I ask that question, I think almost everyone would say, I want the second one. But in the trenches, in the thick of it, it's like, oh my gosh, you're like, this, what you're reflecting back is difficult. It's hard.
It's hard.
And it's complex, and it's triggering a lot of fear and trauma and all these things. But the pathway to healing is to go through things, and a good therapist will help guide you through those hard things and hopefully build enough rapport with you that you trust them enough to let them help you, guide you through. So speaking of which, we have a question here that I think this one question, there's so many directions we could go in with it, and we'll just kind of see where it goes. But we won't beat around the bush about what we see and from this question and the things we can pick out of it. So let me read it, Tyler. By the way, this question was submitted. It was actually submitted over on my website at brannonpatrick.com. And I just want to encourage anybody, if you have a question, a hard question like this, and you want some answers from me and Tyler, that's the place to go, brannonpatrick.com, or you can go to therapybros.com and submit a question there as well. So this is the question. You ready, Tyler?
Yep, let's bring it.
Okay, it says, my husband and I are trying to rebuild our marriage after his emotional affair. I believe the emotional affair was also physical, but he can't bring himself to confess it. He says he is committed to being transparent in our marriage now, but I don't feel he wants to be transparent about the affair. It makes me feel stuck in our recovery. He feels too much detail would be detrimental, but I see it as necessary. I don't necessarily want all the details, just truth about the extent of the affair. Do I just wait for him to be ready?
Great question, right? You're right. There's like there's multiple different angles that we could talk about with this question, and there's a little bit of, I think there's going to be a little bit of truth and perspective on both sides of what was in the question, between, you know, the idea of how much detail do I need, but I definitely need transparency. And this is a hard thing. This is actually something that's probably really common. You know, when we deal with people who have had affairs, there's there's always those questions as to what extent it's gone to.
Well, yeah, but Tyler, I got to say that this question is hard for us to answer,
Well,
because if this couple were sitting in your office, you'd be hearing what they're saying, but you'd also be assessing some things. You'd be assessing her level of fear cycle. So how much is she just in anxiety, digging and digging and digging and digging? But
right.
you'd also be assessing his level of shame and lack of empathy and avoidance of, like how dishonest is he?
Yeah, like, what's
What are
the
the
transparency
nonverbal
level really like?
signs? Yeah, you know.
Right. And maybe we need to pause for a second and explain what the fear cycle is, Brannon, because I'm not sure everybody who's listening is probably understands what you mean by that.
Yeah, it's just really quickly, it's, you know, with betrayal, you've been hurt, and you know, it can trigger a lot of anxiety, can trigger a lot of fears. And what happens after betrayal is you don't know what you don't know, and somebody has deceived you, and they've been probably really good at lying. And so in order to try to be safe, you jump into this control mode, where and one of the ways to control is to try to gather as much information as you possibly can. It's to dig and dig and dig and dig. The problem is you're never satisfied. As you dig, the more you want to dig, the more you're spinning in fear. If you find things, you get triggered into fear. If you don't find things, you get triggered into fear. Um, and so it's natural, it's normal to go down the fear cycle. There's other ways that control happens, things like you try to be extra nice, or have sex more, or lose a bunch of weight so that they love you. Like, that's a way to try to control, but it's done out of fear.
Or
um,
drive by their work to make sure they're where they say they are, or, you know,
yes,
manage social media and all of that stuff.
that fear starts to consume you. And so yeah, I've seen plenty of spouses really stuck in that fear cycle, where the person who did betray has been forthright. They're trying to be transparent, but no matter what they do, their partner's stuck in fear. So, like, one example of this is, I got this couple after they've been to several therapists. They had done something like 9 formal full disclosures,
Oh, wow.
and he had done the same disclosure every time. And he really was like trying hard to be an honest man. But for her, she wanted to know. She wanted to know what she didn't know. She didn't feel safe. Um, and you know, when you dig into her stuff, you see a lot of childhood trauma. You see a lot of broken trust in her relationships with her parents, and with other boyfriends and things like that. And it makes sense why she's really stuck in that fear cycle. Um, but there's another side to this. This might not be what's going on at all.
Right.
Um, her gut might actually be telling her something, and
Yes.
she might be reading this situation spot on, like just right. And she needs to differentiate between, am I spinning in anxiety and fear, or are these emotions of fear in my gut telling me that something's there, that is destroying the safety and trust in our relationship, right?
It's really hard to decipher the difference between those two things.
Right. I think it's hard for a spouse. I think it would be easy for you, Tyler, because you've seen it so many times,
Yeah,
right?
I'm talking from the spouse's perspective. So the person who sent this question, and that's the challenge here is, you know, we could almost paint two pictures and say, if it's the first picture, this is how the response might look, and if it's the second picture, this is how the response might look.
Yes, yes.
Right.
That's a good way to put it.
right? So if I'm sitting here and I'm going, and one way that you can kind of gauge that with what you just explained with the fear cycle is that, one of the things that I think is evidence of the fear cycle a lot in these kinds of situations is that couples will get into this kind of like game with each other, thinking that they're having a hard conversation, and it's really just playing a game of 20 questions that ultimately leads to nowhere but more heartache and pain for both.
Not safety and not connection.
And so if it's like, if you find yourself, what I find really happens a lot, especially from the betrayed partner side of things, oftentimes is that they're asking detailed kinds of questions but what's underneath it is an emotionally based question that never actually gets verbalized.
Yeah.
So if I'm playing 20 questions and saying, how many times did you go meet with this person, and what kinds of things did you do, and where did you go, and how often did you guys have sex, or how did you do this or this or this, those questions, they're coming from a actual good place, because it's like they're looking for stability and they're trying to find answers, and they're wanting honesty, and they're trying to gauge whether or not those answers are honest. But if they get a partner that's answering back, that's saying, I met up with them 5 times and we went to these different places and this, okay, they're given the matter of fact answers, but at the
Yeah.
end of the
They're not
day,
meeting the connection.
the question is, are you still choosing, are you in to work towards choosing me, and do I
Yeah.
matter, and can you see my pain?
Yeah.
um but those questions never actually get asked when the fear cycle is active.
Right. Right. But here's the thing, Tyler, a partner in recovery, I believe, to actually empathize, to actually dig down to that emotional question that's being asked, you have to not be defensive. And so in that moment when they're saying, did you do this? Did you do that? How come? And for you to be able to say, it's okay that you're feeling fear.
Yes.
It's okay that you're not trusting me right now. I know who I am. And so instead of running from your fear, instead of trying to make it right so that you don't feel it, I'm actually going to step into it with you. I'm actually going to, so like, let me give you an example. Let's say I go home today and my wife says, you slept with your secretary today. I know you did, right? That would be crazy, weird if she did that
Mm-hmm.
today.
Mm-hmm.
But I could say, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, where does that come from? That's stupid. Like, come on,
Yeah.
I could say, no, I didn't. No, you can call my coworkers. I can prove to you that I didn't, right? Neither one of those is meeting that bid for connection that she's throwing out. In that moment, if my wife literally did that today, I'd probably say something like, whoa, for you to say that, something's got to be going on. Talk to me.
Help me understand.
Help me understand where you're at today. I want to know what your day's been like. I want to know what you've been feeling, what you've been thinking. And if I'm able to do that, not only am I meeting her bid for connection, um, I'm trust building, because I'm saying to her, I know who I am. I have the strength to actually create some safety here for you. And I'm answering the question of, I don't have a bunch of secrets, Jenny, because I have nothing to hide. Let's talk about it. Right?
Right.
This question from this woman about her husband sounds like he's doing a really poor job at creating safety with her. And he's probably going about it saying, I'm going to be transparent, but he is not answering her question, right?
Right. Well, and if we're reading between the lines on this, that's kind of the first place my brain went, thinking that if I was sitting there with this couple, I hear in her question that she's coming to him, and he's almost like in that spot, because it's so common that this happens, that the person who's done the betraying is just like, that's in the past. I've said I'm sorry. Let's move on. And I promise I'll be transparent from now on, which of course no partner is actually going to believe that right off the
Right.
bat. you
Right.
know and if that's the response that she's getting back from her husband, it's no wonder that she's going, yuck, like,
Yeah.
this doesn't feel good. And maybe he's not acting out, or maybe he's giving this the true story, but but the fact that he's afraid or not able to go into those past dark
To
places
empathize.
and explore those things with her and empathize and show that he's willing to like travel at the pace that she needs to go to figure this stuff out,
Yes.
that feels that that alone will feel really triggering for the spouse who's been betrayed.
Yeah, I believe that addiction. So follow me on this. I believe addiction is an attachment disorder. Meaning, if you have an addiction, you're not going to have very many healthy relationships, right? I believe an attachment disorder is caused by shame screens, like shame everywhere, and so you're manipulating and you're screening everywhere. You're
Making sure
trying to
people don't see you,
see the real vulnerable you, the real vulnerable truth of who you are.
making sure that you're presenting a certain way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So if let's say I were this guy, and let's say I had slept with the other woman, well, I might have a ton of shame around that, and fear of like she's gonna leave me if I actually get honest with that. So I'm gonna screen everywhere, right? Let's say I hadn't slept with the other woman, but I had a ton of shame, and the shame said, I don't want my spouse to think I'm a horrible husband, because deep down I think I'm a
I
horrible
feel like
husband.
I'm terrible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of connecting to her in her pain and where she's at, I'm stuck in my own shame screens trying to avoid any vulnerability. And therein lies the attachment disorder. Therein lies that actually is where the trust and the safety in a relationship gets destroyed, right? It's not about what you've done. I mean, what you do, there's consequences, but it's not about the literal facts. It's about the emotional, energetic connection. Am I able to connect in an intimate, vulnerable, empathetic way to a partner, or am I not because I have so much shame? And to me, Tyler, and tell me if I'm wrong, a much better indicator of somebody who's not going to act out and hurt their spouse again is not necessarily about sobriety, avoiding a behavior. It's about their ability to be a healthy, attached person, an empathetic person in a relationship, right?
Right. I mean, that's where healing has to come in, is that and when couples go through things like this, they have to actually relearn that they're almost gonna rebuild a new relationship that's focused on deeper levels of connection and attachment, not just with each other, but as a way of life.
Right.
And so what's going on with this question is that we don't know whether or not he actually slept with her or not.
Right.
Like
Right.
at the end of the day, in some ways it really matters to know that.
That does matter. Yes.
It does matter. Like the person asking the question probably needs to know that, but she doesn't need to know that so that she can then decide whether or not she needs to stay or go. She needs to know that so that she can allow herself to gauge through his response, like whether or not it's safe to continue to try to lean into this relationship.
Yeah. To face the reality, to gauge that, is he actually healing?
Right. Is he willing to do the work to lean in and do the work to start connecting?
Right.
That's what that discussion is about. It's not
Right.
about the actual detail.
Yeah. The answer to a partner, if your partner comes to you and says, I want to know this and I want to know that, and you say, well, it's unhealthy for me to give you all the details, so sorry. That in no way is going to be like, oh, okay, I trust you, thanks. Like, that's great. I appreciate you. I appreciate you protecting me. That's so nice of you. Right? Now, I'm not saying you have to give every last detail, right? But when you're just showing up avoidant, you look guilty.
Yeah.
And your partner is going to feel from you that shame, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, this is such an interesting topic, Tyler.
Yeah. We were having a discussion about this in one of my groups just last week about this kind of very, very thing. And one of the guys in my group was saying, like, man, she wants to play 20 questions like every single night. And I keep telling her that the details won't all be good for her. Because the truth is that some of those details aren't going to be good
Right.
for her.
What
Right.
is the color of the
Like,
hair of the partner of the
yeah.
emotional
Or where
affair
did you,
partner? What
what restaurants did you do? Or like, what
what's her
positions
bra
did you use?
size?
Yeah.
Or
All of that
yeah.
stuff. Like, which are questions that people will end up wanting to ask, thinking that it's going to give them some sort of semblance of an answer. And
Right.
so we were talking about this in group. And the guy was saying, he basically was saying exactly what you just said. He said, I told her, and he uses, I love it when they use like therapy against you,
Yeah.
against them. They're like,
Well,
the guys in
it's an
group said,
ultimate gaslight. Like it's a
it's
really
totally,
good gaslight. Like, well, in therapy, it says I'm not, and so it's sending back the message to the partner of, not only will I not connect to you, you're totally unhealthy, and I'm the healthy one here, right?
right, exactly. And now I'm doing what's right here by not telling you the details. So, and so what I try to teach the guys, who are in this group is you need to show up really in a place of, and this is a hard thing to do, in a place of willingness to share whatever you would need
Yes.
to, but also have the courage to say,
Boundaries.
help me understand how this is going to help. Like,
Yep.
if this, I'm willing to share whatever you need, but there's some things that I'm really worried might not be healthy. And then what it does is it puts the ball back in the betrayed partner's court, and then they get the chance to say, nope, I need to know it. You answer the question, and then the guy can go, okay, well, here's the answer. And then she'll go, oh, I didn't need to know that. And then
Yeah.
she'll learn,
Yeah.
right?
I was working with a couple years ago, and she would pull up Facebook, and they lived in a little tiny town, and she'd pull up women from the town and say, is she hot? Is she hot? Are you attracted to her? Are you attracted to her? And it's funny what he did. So at first he was like, no, not at all. No, no. And what do you think that did to her?
Oh, total dishonesty. The relationship's going through the tubes.
Right. So he came into therapy, and I said to him, well, you need to be honest with your wife. Like, she'll never feel safe unless you're honest with her. And so they go off, and she does it again. She pulls up Facebook, and he's like, is she hot? She's like, is she hot? Is she hot? And he's like, yeah, she's really hot. Yeah, I'm attracted to her. Yeah. So, and what do you think that did?
Oh, it made her furious and devastated and just
Yeah.
rocked her world.
So he
Right.
comes into therapy again, and he's like, you told me to be honest. And like, it almost led to divorce here. Like, and now everywhere she goes in the town, there's these women in the grocery store and that she's triggered by. Right.
Right.
And I said to him, you need to be honest with her. And he looked at me like bewildered and was like, what are you talking about? I'm not grasping this. And it's what you were just saying, Tyler. It's, you know what? I am willing to divulge information about me. I am open. I will tell you anything, but I'm going to be honest with you about what my gut's telling me. I don't think it's healthy for me to tell you that, but I'm willing to tell you that. I've had couples before say, or here's a way someone's held a boundary. I'm willing to tell you that, but what I'd like to do is consult Brannon first and just talk it through in a therapy session, whether or not that's good for us, right? Mm-hmm. But that's first and foremost preceded by, I'm willing to be honest with you. I'm not, I'm not defending back and saying, nope, no, I won't give you the details.
Right. And it's as much the body language and the attitude about that more so than it is the actual words. And so if it's like, I'm leaning in saying, you know what, this is painful for me to speak, but I'm willing to share anything that you're going to need. I just need to understand where this is going and why this is going to help. Right. Or to say, I'm really concerned, and it happens all the time. They say, nope, I really need to know. And then you go, okay, well, here it is. And then afterwards they go, oh, I don't want to know that. It's like, I don't believe you anyway. It's like, okay, now we've learned as a couple. So the next time you bring me a question, I'm going to say, are you sure this is going to help, or what do you actually really need? Right. Or as a husband, if I'm starting to figure this out, and I'm going to go, oh, the fact that you just brought this to me tells me that there must be some big time fear going on right now. Like, tell me what can I do to help with that? Right. that's going to go a lot further in the relationship than the actual questions.
So Tyler, let's back up something you just said. I think is important, and maybe give some specifics here. You talk about energy and body language when it comes to connection, when it comes to disconnection, defensiveness. What are some signs that somebody's really struggling to be an open, empathetic, honest person on a nonverbal level?
Yeah, you're going to see people, their body language will be either rigid or closed. So you're going to have, like with me, my jaw goes really tight
Yeah,
and things get rigid, and people close up their bodies. People want to withdraw. They want to isolate.
they won't
There's no,
look up. They
there's
won't.
not a lot of looking up, and you know what? A lot of people have a hard time with eye contact anyway. But yeah, they avert their eyes to different places, and then it gives that's where some of that energy comes from, and it says, oh, this isn't a very safe topic to talk about right now.
Yeah.
And so
I,
as opposed to the other way, which is, open your posture, show some eye contact, soften the features in your face, and what you're really looking at here is, it's the difference between approaching it from a place of self-protection versus approaching it from a place of desire to help your partner, right? It's really self-preservation versus love.
and I want to add to that too. It's, you know, it's not just a desire to help your partner, because before that, you need a desire to love yourself and help yourself. And so, like if you choose deceit, dishonesty, secrecy, and darkness, then you're going to continue to feed and fuel shame. But if you choose transparency and openness,
Which
um,
is the only answer.
the only way to healing for yourself individually,
And for the marriage.
yeah. So if this guy whose spouse wrote the question is listening right now, I don't know what you've done and what you haven't done, and I don't know the details of it, but I do want you to hear this. I want you to know that if you think that you can hide from some of the bigger secrets, that you can avoid them by gaslighting in this way, or pushing her off by saying, I'm not going to share the details, your relationship and your recovery will not move forward. And she said that in the question, but it's true. It will not move forward if there's big secrets there. As much as you want to be past them just because they're in the past, you haven't fully faced the consequence of them unless you're willing to own it and step into that pain with your partner. Is that true, Tyler?
That's 100% accurate. It's like it's like a right now, again, we're assuming things that we don't actually know, Brannon. Like
Yes.
he could be willing to be totally transparent and
Well,
honest
that's what
here,
I
but
said. I don't know what I don't
yeah,
know here.
right. So, but let's just say that this is a common thing that happens with a lot of people that we work with, is they say to themselves, I was pretty honest. I'm going to take a couple of things to my grave.
I was pretty honest.
Yeah, I was
Doesn't exist.
inside themselves. They go, I was
Right.
honest, but I've got these 2 or 3 little things that I'm going to take with my grave, because I'm either afraid it's going to devastate the other person, or more often it's like I'm going to lose everything if I have to tell them. Um, if I hold on to those things, I have just signed myself up for a slow, painful death of the relationship.
And
It's
of self.
and of self. I will never climb out of my own shame. I will never be able to be present fully with my partner, and eventually there will be a wall that we hit together, and my partner will feel crazy because that wall will be there, and and the only way, and this is what's scary about it, is there's a chance sometimes when there's secrets like that it might mean the end of the relationship.
Oh yeah.
And
And
the
it's
only
still
way
good.
that the only way that the relationship has a shot is through that.
You know what it reminds me of, Tyler, is I dated a girl for a long time. And this is when I was really immature. I didn't know what I was doing. And I dated her for a long, long time. And this is what's so stupid is I continued to date her knowing that I didn't love her, because I didn't want to hurt her. So think about that. That's so stupid.
Well, and think about how selfish it is too.
And selfish. So what I'm doing is I'm avoiding the uncomfortableness of the reality. And so I'm keeping her on the hook, um, by avoiding reality. And in the long run, I'm dragging her through the mud, wasting parts of her life and selfishly doing that, right? Where it's better to face the music, deal with the grief.
No, there will be grief.
Yeah, I mean, I'd miss her family. There's a lot of things that I loved about this situation, but like there's things that I didn't want to let go of. But the reality is I didn't love her. The reality is the relationship needed to end. And so when you talk about, bringing the secrets to light could lead to divorce, it could lead to some changes. Those changes that happen are better than living in hell. The hell of the secrets and the shame, and dragging your partner through it for years and years and years. So I did a session years ago, and it was one of those moments when like my gut was just spot on. It was like just spot on, and I just felt like there is something here. Like there is a big secret here. We were stuck with this couple for a long, long time. Just stuck. And I kind of confronted him pretty straightforward and said something like, all the secrets need to come up and they need to come out. Um, and that needs to happen. And basically, I didn't say, I know you have them, but I pretty much did. And like 2 days later, he sat his wife down and was like, Brannon's absolutely right. Here you go. Boom. Right.
Right.
And I think they didn't have sex for like 2 years. Why do I say that? The point I'm making is there was some pretty hard consequences and pain and disconnection and hard work that they had to go through in their own recovery because of the reality of what he brought up.
Right.
He's still better off, and their relationship is still better off because he finally faced the music. Right?
Exactly. And he and she would both still be better off even if that marriage didn't survive as a result of those things.
Yes, no question.
Yes,
So
because then you're not stuck in that. There's nothing worse. There's no worse place to be in life than to feel hopeless and trapped and not know why you're hopeless and trapped. And
shackled down.
oh, just that's a terrible feeling. And the one thing that you get when you live with transparency and honesty is that you get the potential to, yeah, there's pain involved, there's suffering, there's consequence, but you get the potential to move, and you get the potential to
Freedom.
change and grow, and you still get choice. And you can't have that if you're always carrying around that little thing, and this is something we all do. I in our groups, again, I make them do all these projects, and all these projects are geared towards them being very vulnerable, and we do one project and it's vulnerable, and we do another one, it's even more vulnerable, and they think, oh good, I'm done with all that stuff. Then we go, here's another project. It's like we just kind of tease out all of these things that they're like, oh man, but by the time they're done, they really have had a chance to bring everything to light.
Yeah.
And that freedom that comes as a result, it's like it really is almost like a shift in the energy of their overall lives.
Right.
And that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing this wife like really asking for in her relationship. And I'm reading between the lines again, but she doesn't want to go anywhere. She wants this thing to work. She just wants it to be
but you got
transparent.
You can't move forward unless reality is dealt with.
Yeah.
I like what you're just saying about your groups. 2 weeks ago, I might have told you about this. We did this activity in one of my groups where it like really set a safe context of confidentiality, of support, of masculine just love together in this group of men. And it was a really kind of serene place, and just allowed whoever wanted to stand up and just like take the hooks off, take the shame out. And so like the things they're hanging on to that just have beat them down. And this one guy got up, and I won't share any details of what he shared, but he talked about something when he was in his early adolescence that happened, and he hadn't told anybody. So there he is in front of, 15 people, looking them in the eyes and saying, I'm going to tell you something that happened that just has told me my entire life that I'm a monster and that I'm horrible and that I'm just an awful, terrible person. And what happened, and this is interesting. So he's now, he's been married for a long, long time, and he has all these repercussions and all these consequences from this shame. There's this wake of destruction from this shame in his marriage. So he speaks this thing to the group. And when he speaks this thing to the group, we're all like, that's it? Like, we love you. We love you so much. You're okay. And so in his shame and in his shackles and in his darkness, he's got all this torment going on. When he brings it to the light, we're like, dude, you didn't have to live in that hell. You can still be loved even if you've made those mistakes. You can still be loved even if there's been things that have hurt other people that you've done. And Tyler, we're talking about two things, but they're the same thing. One is getting free yourself, and two is allowing yourself to create love in a relationship. Right. But that happens through being done with your shame and facing it.
And being transparent. So, that's a great story, B. Thanks for sharing. I want to back up a little bit to the question that we got, because I don't know that we've actually answered what she might have been asking yet. Okay. So she's saying, my gut's telling me there's something more. What do I do? Like, if I feel like he's not being totally transparent and honest, and that my gut's telling me that, what do I do with this?
Yeah. So first is what we said first, is really evaluate, is this your gut or is this your fear? Right.
We talked about the fear side of things. What about the gut side of things?
Yeah. Your gut, you're going to feel empowered. You're going to feel it's weird because it's like, it's this bad thing, but I feel like almost like peace that's reality. Like I know that's reality. There's a serenity to it, even though it's a hard thing. It's like, I get it. Like I know that's real. I actually, for me, Tyler, I don't know about you, but I actually feel it in my gut. Like I feel it in here, like down the middle of my solar plexus, a feeling of like empowerment and truth. I feel anxiety more in my head, in my temples, it's spinning in there. I get headaches. Like you say, your jaw locks up, right? So physically, I feel it in here. I feel spiritual support. I feel connection. It's not like an ancestor in my ear, like, hey, buddy. But it's like, I feel strength behind me about the truth of what I'm feeling. What about you, Tyler, when we talk about your gut?
Yeah, I think it's the same way. I would connect it to my own spiritual, part of me. I feel, even though it's like over something that's bad, there's like a surety that comes, and it does.
Yeah, surety. That's a good word.
Straight in my, kind of like you said, your solar plexus in your chest. And oftentimes what happens too is, as you're talking about this and we're talking about this, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening and going like, oh, I felt those things too. Or, I don't know if I can trust myself anymore because I've been wrong before. What I say to a partner who's been betrayed this way, and when I honestly believe they're coming at it from a place of saying, I don't know what it is, but it's something, like, well, what I would encourage them to do is I encourage them to say, well, follow your gut and let's set some appropriate boundaries accordingly, even if the boundaries have to be a little bit broader than, I know that you acted out with this person in this way, until you tell me that you did that, then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. That's not the right boundary. It's like my gut is screaming at me that there's something that's not quite fully disclosed yet. I don't know when I'll feel secure enough in that unless you are able to bring something to me. But until I'm secure enough in that, I'm going to need to do X,
Well,
Z.
yeah, Tyler, you're so first you differentiate, is it my gut, is it my fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the right answer here is, well, the wrong answer here is to try to force him and control him into confessing, right?
Right.
The right answer here is, if your gut's telling you this, then what you need to differentiate is what's in your control, what's not in your control. Your boundaries are 100% about you and your own self-care. They're not about controlling him. So when you differentiate what's in your control, what's not in your control, then you can do what you're saying, right? It's like, okay, he may or may not have done this, but
Right.
I don't feel safe. I
Right.
don't feel at peace. So what do I need, and what can I create? Maybe I need space from him right now. Maybe I need to call somebody every day and get support. Maybe, maybe I need to go to a few more meetings. Like I need to say, look, I can't put the kids to bed on Thursday nights because I'm going to go to a meeting for me, because that's where I'm at right now. I need that. Um, so it's focusing on you, and surrounding yourself with good support, helping yourself find some truth through that support, loving yourself, taking care of yourself. So, and maybe getting some distance from something or somebody that's hurting you, right?
Just until you can get some clarity about it. And what it does is you're not only taking care of yourself, but in doing it that way, you're opening up space and opportunity for the truth to come out as well. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
um, and so even if nothing has happened, what you're doing is you're at the minimum, you're protecting yourself and your values, but you're also saying maybe it wasn't that, maybe there's something else that happened or that was going on or that's causing a block, and it gives the other person a chance to go, man, like, I know that I didn't do these things. What else could possibly be going on that would be causing that feeling of disconnection?
Yep. Yep.
And then I get to go and explore it and go, well, maybe I'll give you an example of this. This is maybe a little bit personal, but in our process of the healing process that we were going through, there were several times when I would get the same question, like, I know that this happened, or I know that you've done this, and I'd be like, dang, like, honestly, I haven't done that. Like, and then you feel stuck because you're like, well, I either have to tell a lie to get back in the good graces, or I have to tell the truth, but then there's going to be this disconnection, these
Because she
boundaries,
doesn't believe that's true.
right, she's not going to believe it. And so what I figured out and learned is that I remember one time she brought something to me, and my wife said, Tyler, I know that this has happened, something's gone wrong. And I said, actually, like, boy, I know you're not going to believe me when I say it, but that hasn't happened, but let me think about it. And I went away and I thought about it for a minute. And what I realized is that earlier that week, I had gone and joined like a fantasy football league for $40 that I didn't tell her about. And it had crossed my mind that I should let her know. And then I just didn't do it. And I was withholding information, and she was reading that from me because that barrier comes up emotionally. And so
Right.
that her brain was like, oh, Tyler's off doing
So
this, this,
she's
this, and
triggered.
this. Right. And instead, what it needed to be was, while she took her space away, I had to sit and go, what's going on? Like, because I haven't done those things. Oh, I've been hiding. And then I had to take it to her and say, hey, I know that this is not what you're probably looking for, but this is something that I realized I've been hiding from you, and I'm sorry about it. And it was kind of an afterthought at first, but then I felt stupid about it. And, you know,
But sometimes that's there and sometimes it's not, right?
and,
Like
and,
some,
and it, and it may
yeah,
not be there, and if
right.
it's not there, I'll give you one last example on this. And it's just a little bit of an illustration. Is I remember in our church, we get assigned to do like what we call ministering visits to different families. And I got assigned to a family who, it was a woman who had just barely been divorced, and she had several kids about the same age as my kids. And I know that I got assigned to her and her family because of what I do for a living. And so I went home and I told my wife what my assignment was, and she just didn't feel comfortable with it. She was like, Tyler, it kind of feels bad to me that you're going to be over mowing her lawn instead of my lawn. talking to her kids instead of our kids when you're such a workaholic and you're not home that much. And she's like, I just don't feel very good about that. And I was like, yeah. And I, on the other side, was going, yeah, but I want to be a man who does my duty. And I know that I can help here. And and my intentions were pure and they were good. And I kept saying that. We went back and forth on this for about a month. And she kept saying, this doesn't feel right to me. I know you're probably doing it for the right reasons, but it just doesn't feel good to me. And I'd say, but it does to me. And I think I should do it. And she just kind of said, well, I guess I'm just going to be a little bit more disconnected from you for the time being until I can figure this out. And after about 30 days, I was like, you know what? There's a few things that I would change about this, but it's not worth it to me. And so I went and I talked to my church leader and said, hey, I need a different assignment. Here's my reasons why. And he's like, oh, I totally understand. It was no big deal. I went home, patched it up.
But I think, Tyler, you have to make that decision, not have
Right.
her make that decision for you, or else you're going to be resentful toward her.
Right.
And you're not being honest if you're just
right. And
doing it out of compliance.
that's why it took a whole month to get to that.
Yeah.
And what really changed it in that moment for me was that she kind of just said, hey, look, you work with a bunch of men's groups every week. If a man came in with the same scenario, what kind of feedback would the guys give him?
Right.
And I was like, well, they'd probably give both sides, but the vast majority would probably say, hey, man, like, given the history that you've been through, it's probably okay to let this one go.
Right.
Right. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. I should probably do that too.
Yeah.
So
there's a space that exists, that has to exist for trust to be there. And it's in this interdependent relationship. There's a space between people where it's like, I want you to be you, and I want me to be able to be me here. And instead of me jumping over and telling you what you should do or who you are, how you should be, that won't create trust and safety in our relationship. But there's a space there, but we're still affected by each other. What you do really matters to me. It's really important. Mm-hmm. And if I could kind of wrap up with an analogy here, let me see if it works. My dog, Willie, he sucks at fetch. Like, he's terrible at it. He loves to play it, but he sucks at it. Because what he does is, I'll throw a ball and he'll run and he'll get it and he'll bring it back about 3 feet from me. And then what he wants me to do is he doesn't want to play fetch. He wants to play chase. So he wants me to start chasing him all around the yard, trying to get the ball, like, come on, and it doesn't work to play fetch with him. It doesn't work to get the ball back, because the more I chase him, the more he runs and the further he goes, and he just goes and goes and goes. Right.
Right.
But if I stand in the space where I am and I just kind of stay there and act kind of chill and whatever, and just be like, yeah, I'm good, Willie. Like, I'm fine. Eventually he comes around and he'll drop the ball right at my feet. Like, yeah, here I am.
He's like, well, I guess we're playing fetch instead of chase.
Yeah, exactly. And but here's the thing. He doesn't always. So there's no guarantee. He might run off and start chasing a squirrel in the back of my yard, and fetch is over. Right.
Right.
But I have a much better chance at fetch if I chill out. I know who I am. I trust that, hey, whether he runs off or whether he comes back, I'm going to be okay.
Right.
And so you see the analogy there?
Yes, totally.
So I'm not saying, all the men out there are dogs or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Right. But chasing connection and safety will never get you safety and trust. So you guys, if you liked this episode, please share it. Sharing it really helps us, and it helps other people as well. I know it's kind of a weird topic to share sometimes, the things we talk about. So have the courage enough to do that. And please. I was
just also going to say, Brannon, that I know that some of what we've touched on, I'm sure we'll cover this more in other episodes, but kind of gets into boundaries work as well. And I know that you have a boundaries boot camp that's a really good, resource for people. Can you probably ought to just tell them where and how to find that?
Tyler, last night I did a group. There's like 50 people in there, and the topic was boundaries. And every time I talk about boundaries, it's just like flood of questions. Like, well, what would I do here? And how is a boundary this? And what is a boundary that? And blah, 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 you know, and so boundaries work is it all comes back to boundaries, because being a boundary person is being an authentic person. And so, yeah, check out Boundaries Bootcamp at brannonpatrick.com. It's a $10 little program, but I think it's full of good content that is really helpful. So yeah, that's a good place to start. It's a good place to know how to separate yourself, stand firm, know who you are. So thanks for bringing that up, Tyler.
You bet, man. You guys, thank you for listening, and have a great week.
Okay, we'll see you guys later.
See ya.